Normally, family meals are enjoyed here at my parents' place, but today I'm inviting them into my kitchen to help prepare prime rib dinner, perfect for the holidays. I'm Chef Heidi Fink, and that's what we're cooking on the coast. Today is an extra special episode because I have my family joining me. In the kitchen with me are my parents, Cynthia and Hardy.
Hello.
Are you guys excited?
We are excited. I'm waiting to take it home. Waiting to see if you can cook as well as I taught you.
Yes, that's true. Both my parents are great cooks. So we are, for this holiday special, we are making prime rib dinner with Yorkshire pudding, gravy, and all the fixings.
You promised me turkey.
Yes, we were thinking turkey,
rib.
but she can probably sell me on this meal, I think, because it looks pretty good.
Yeah, prime rib is such a special, special holiday meal. For me, it is a prime cut of meat, and we want to cook it perfectly. So in today's episode, we're going to be concentrating on the technique. There's no flashy spices, no flashy seasonings. It's all about technique. So first of all, we're going to get this prime rib happening. I've let this come up to room temperature for several hours before I cook it. It cooks more evenly and quickly that way. And I haven't had it covered, so then starting to dry out already on the top helps get a nice crust on it. The first thing we have to do is season it. Okay, Dad, you're gonna put the salt on. Mom, you're gonna put the pepper.
Okay.
Just get it on there. We're gonna do it all over. Yeah.
Should I let him go first?
Yeah, he can go first. Yeah.
In?
Let's do salt first and then we'll do pepper. Okay. Let's get it on there, all sides, just the side. So you could obviously do lots of different seasonings if you wanted to, but I just like, you know, prime rib is so good on its own. It really doesn't need anything else than salt and pepper. I think the most important thing is you've got to nail the technique of cooking it first and then worry about, yes, that's great, Mom. And then worry about how you're going to season it differently. It's okay. So we're gonna practice a technique called reverse searing. This is great, you guys. I need you, Dad, can you take this and empty that salt out into the sink there? Just so we don't want, that base is gonna turn into our gravy, so we don't want it to be too salty. Okay, now let's just wash our hands and then we'll get back to that.
Got it done.
Perfect, okay, let's talk about reverse searing. So most of the time when you're cooking roast like this, the recipes will often tell you to put it on high heat first, like brown it in a pan, and then put it in a lower, slower oven to finish cooking. We're gonna do the reverse of that. We're gonna throw it into a 250-degree oven. Doesn't matter whether it's 2 ribs or 6 ribs. At 250 degrees, it's gonna take somewhere between 3 and 4 hours to reach 120 to 125 Fahrenheit, which is rare. Then you're gonna pull it out, then you're gonna crank the oven to as high as you can get it, put it back in there and sear the outside. And the reason for this is it cooks more evenly throughout. And also because by then the roast has kind of dried out, you get a quicker, hotter sear on it than if you do it at the beginning when the roast is wet. So that's what we're doing. Dad, do you want to throw that in? The bottom oven is at 250.
I'll do that.
Actually, I'll help you because I feel like, oh, he's strong enough to hold it one-handed.
I've been practicing for this.
So that's gonna be in there for a minimum of 3 hours. The next thing we are gonna talk about is this stock I made. This is a brown beef stock. I made this by browning extra beef rib bones and some aromatics. There's some onions and herbs in there and a bit of seasoning. Because if I'm gonna go to the trouble to buy a prime rib and cook a prime rib, I wanna have homemade stock to make the gravy. But you can definitely buy store-bought stock, either beef or chicken for this recipe. Here, let me get you some towels and you can dump that for me. She's tougher than I thought. There you go. You got it? I want to get everything.
Oh, you want that? Oh, okay.
I am going.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great, Mom.
Okay.
Okay, put this closer so we don't. Okay. So we're going to save the stock till later. So the stock can be made many days ahead of time, even weeks ahead of time, and stored in the freezer. You know, up to 4 days in the fridge, a couple months in the freezer. So that's something you can do ahead of time. The other thing that you want to do ahead of time is the Yorkshire pudding batter. So I'm going to show you my tried and true Yorkshire pudding. It turns out every single time, and it is 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of eggs. That's it.
Ooh.
I know, crazy.
Do eggs come in cups?
No, they do not come in cups. That's actually a great question. How about you crack eggs until it's a cup?
Okay.
I love that.
I can't do the single egg cracking. My skills are lacking.
Fine.
Oh wait, that rhymed.
It's usually 4 eggs, but sometimes depending on the egg.
Yeah, because there's only 3 in there right now,
Yeah.
so that's 4 should be just about perfect.
Yep, that's great. So generally
Excellent.
4 large eggs. So let's put those in the blender, Dad.
Oh, I'm in the blender person.
Yeah.
Blender business.
Yeah, and then, Mom, do you want to go to the right? That's good.
Flour in there yet?
Yeah, we can put the flour in there. So that's a cup of flour that I pre-measured. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, now we got to measure out a cup of milk. And then, Dad, can you put just a pinch of salt in there?
This is the kind of measuring cup where I don't need to bend.
Yeah, I know. I love this kind.
Yeah,
I got it
it's
at
lovely.
Whisk, who's one of the sponsors of our show.
Yay, whisk.
Perfect. All right, now dump that in.
She's pushy, isn't she?
I learned it from the best, Dad. You can put that in the sink. Okay.
You used to obey.
Did I ever? Did
Never.
I? Okay, turn it on. Just on low is good for now. Yep. Okay, that's it. So I always make that ahead of time and let it rest at least an hour at room temperature. It makes the flour that much more extensible, much more likely to rise. But the secret is in the high liquid content of this recipe. The more liquid, the more steam, and the more you can get the big puff on your Yorkshire puddings. Finally, we have the potatoes. I'm obviously not going to start cooking them right now because we have 4 hours to wait for our roast, but I do want to mention they can be peeled either with a peeler or what?
A paring knife, yes. I learned to peel from my parents because there weren't potato peelers at that time, and it's a skill. It took me years to practice to get the peel thin enough and so on. My Depression-era parents were very concerned that the peel should not be too thick because you're wasting food, and so I'm now highly skilled with a paring knife.
And does not like peelers. Okay, but I do want to mention a couple things about making perfect potatoes, and it's going to come up again in the next segment. First of all, you want to pick russet potatoes or baker potatoes. The high starch content of these potatoes make very fluffy, fluffy mashed potatoes. Number 2, and Mom, do the honors, it needs a lot of salt. Do not skimp.
Well, tell me when.
Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, okay.
We can always salt a bit more at the end.
Okay.
So then you always start potatoes in cold water. We're going to start them in a little bit. So right now we have most of the components ready. We got the roast in. We have our Yorkshire pudding batter made. We have our stock made. We've seasoned our potatoes. We'll get them boiling soon. And it's just a matter of waiting. So when we come back, we're going to be back in the kitchen again, and we'll be making the next steps of this amazing prime rib dinner. Welcome back to our holiday prime rib dinner. So we have had our prime rib cooking low and slow for about 3.5 hours. Now I was having such a good time with my parents like I do at the holidays, and I let it go a tiny bit more than I normally do, so it's between 125 and 130 when I pulled it out. It's between 125 and 130 when I pulled it out. It's been resting under this foil just long enough for me to crank that oven. So I've turned my top oven now to convection roast 500. That's as hot as it's going to get, and if you have a convection setting, this is the time to use it. So it's ready to go. I'm going to put it back in there. So this is for the sear. Keep this.
What about the turkey?
Dad, this is for the sear section. So it's cooked all the way through, but not seared. So now we're going to throw it in for its reverse sear. Thanks, Dad. Oh yeah. All right, close it up. Now, a couple other things I'm going to talk about is how we time our meal. So we're going to talk about perfect mashed potatoes, but we're going to talk about some of the other sides. The sides with a prime rib can be difficult. If you only have one oven and you need to do the roast and then also Yorkshire puddings, you don't have a lot of room to also roast other things. So you want to think about stuff you can do on the stovetop or things you can do ahead of time. So just as an example, right here, I've got this German red sweet and sour cabbage. This is something that can be made well ahead of time and reheated on the day of. A couple other things we're gonna do is we're gonna make a salad. So can you get the stuff from the fridge? Yeah. We're gonna make a Brussels sprout salad with some yummy elements like toasted nuts, cranberries. I've got a honey mustard dressing. So this is something that can be made tossed just before or even up to half an hour to an hour ahead of time. So I've got some shaved Brussels sprouts, and no shame, buy one of those kits if you want, and then just put your own dressing on it for better flavor. So I've got some grated carrot, I have some shallots that I just put a little tiny bit of apple cider vinegar just to give it that nice pink color. Then I've got some radishes just because I like radishes. And then I made a honey Dijon dressing. Then Dad, do you want to grab some tongs from right there? Those are my favorite tongs. So we're gonna put the dressing here. You wanna toss it up? We can always add more dressing. There we go. So we're gonna toss that, and then at the very end, just put on our cranberries, and I've got almonds, but you could do whatever nuts. You want pecans, walnuts?
All of the above.
Okay, while you're doing that, we're gonna put these on at the last minute. I think it's pretty much done. Just pop it right back there. Okay, so another thing I wanna talk about, if you only have one oven and you do wanna roast some things, like here I've got some roasted squash and I have some garlic roasted mushrooms. Generally, holiday meals are in the cold times of the year, so I often will pre-roast some veggies, leave them on the tray, and you could throw them back in the fridge or even just put them out on the porch for a few hours. When it gets closer to serving time, you can pop these back in the oven to reheat while the roast is resting. So this is just some examples of what you can do. Now, next, we've got our mashed potatoes. I talked a big game about the perfect mashed potatoes. I've talked earlier about the russet potatoes being the one. The next thing that's really important, you want to tell me if they're cooked?
Yes.
Yes, how do you know?
Because you can stick a fork right in them and it doesn't resist.
It doesn't resist. They already start to just barely break apart. That's key because with potatoes, you want the starch to be completely cooked before you start to mash them. A slightly undercooked starch, when you mash it, becomes very gluey. The other thing that's key is that the potatoes are simmering, not boiling, because boiling breaks them up too much and cooks them actually unevenly. Before we drain them though, this is my other secret. Instead of using milk, I'm gonna use some potato water to mash them. That gives it super nice potato flavor. Honestly, it's so good. We're gonna put a ton of butter in there, don't worry. Yeah.
No milk?
No milk.
Have to disown you.
Okay, so you can drain them. So yeah, we put it back in the pot. I just mash it right back in the pot. You can put it right back on the stove. So next we have to put our epic tons of butter, okay? You know what, this is one thing I don't usually measure. I just measure with my heart. We're gonna put basically almost half a pound in there. So cut that into smaller pieces.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be super small, just, small enough that it'll melt evenly. And then Dad, do you wanna grab that potato masher right there? Yes.
Oh,
you can go over to the potatoes.
That's the one that your grandfather used for mashing berries when he was making jam.
Oh, that's right. Okay, there we go. Yeah, throw that in there, yeah. Don't start mashing until it's all in there. We're gonna get a big spoon. Yeah, so get a big spoon to melt all the butter, mix it all in. So I only start adding potato water after the butter's melted. I think that's the real secret to the mashed potatoes, honestly, is how much butter is in there. Okay, start mashing. I'm gonna put a little bit of potato water in there. Okay, you can start mashing. I'm gonna check on that roast, actually.
I think she brought us here for cheap labor.
I think so.
Ooh.
Here.
Do you guys want to see this roast? My oven was a bit hotter than I was expecting. Okay, so C has got a beautiful sear on it. I know, right?
Awesome.
So I'm going to set that aside and just tent it with foil. So a very, very important thing about roasting meat like this, especially high-grade meat, is you have to let it rest for a minimum of 20 minutes, probably more like 40, before you cut into it. Do you guys know why?
Spread the juices through.
Yes, spread the juices through it.
I know stuff. That's all I know.
Very sad.
So I just tented it loosely. You don't want to lose that crust, but you want to kind of maintain the heat while it's resting. These potatoes, look at how beautiful and silky they are. In fact, I barely used any potato water. There was enough butter in here. You guys want to try? There's forks down there.
Oh, yes.
The tasting of potatoes.
Tasting the potatoes. See if they pass muster. Well, they're good.
First time I get to taste something on your shoe.
That's amazing. That is nice. Wow.
Yeah?
We're converted.
I'm off milk.
Yeah, that's it.
It's just fluffier. It's kind of lighter and
Yeah, it is,
fluffier, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is kind of a secret. So lots of butter, but no milk. So I often make the potatoes ahead of time like this and actually just keep it warm in the pot. You don't even really need to keep it on the heat if the meal's within half an hour. Now the last thing we have to do is cook those Yorkshire puddings. So I turn the oven down to 425. Now we are gonna get our Yorkshire pudding pan. So this is just a muffin tin. You can also have a special Yorkshire pudding tin, but a muffin tin works great. So another secret with Yorkshire puddings, this is one of the only times I use cooking spray is for Yorkshire puddings because then they come out of the pan. So I'm going to show you. You want to get everywhere, including the top. Then we're going to put some oil in it as well. That's good, yeah.
Well,
I have to do all the work.
Yeah, that's right. Make sure you get the sides done.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna just put a little bit of oil in the bottom. So traditionally, this is done with beef drippings, but I find most of the time when you get prime rib or any kind of roast, there just isn't the same amount of fat on it that there probably was, 150 years ago. So you do have beef drippings from your roast, yes, absolutely put a little teaspoon in each one, but otherwise just some vegetable oil. Okay, in the oven to preheat this pan. Just for like 30 seconds. This oven is hot. And then this is another reason why I like having the Yorkshire pudding batter. I'm just gonna give it a quick buzz, just to reblend it. One of the reasons I like to have the Yorkshire pudding batter in a blender is that then it's got a nice spout and we can put even amounts in each cup.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it doesn't take very long at all for this to heat up, okay? I'm just gonna do this part, I'm sorry, I'm a control freak.
That's fine.
So then you just put it in about 2/3 of the way. Then we're gonna pop that back in our 425-degree oven. They take about 20 minutes to cook, and then you often have to cook them at a lower temperature for another 10 just to make sure they set properly. Ooh, I don't have enough for the last one.
It's going to be a tiny
Yorkshire pudding.
Baby Yorkshire.
A baby Yorkshire. A burnt Yorkshire. Okay, can you help me? Close it up. There we go. There we go. So we're at the stage where everything's almost ready. The roast has to rest for about the amount of time it takes the Yorkshire puddings to cook, so this is perfect. When we come back, we're gonna make the gravy and plate it up. Stick around.
Where's the turkey?
Welcome back to our holiday kitchen. The Yorkshire pudding is ready, so let me grab those out of the oven. Look at these.
Look at the baby one.
I know. So there we go. Look at these beauties.
Oh,
and Dad, can you throw those two in the oven? We're just putting the mushrooms and the squash back in the oven. They just need to be in there for a couple minutes to heat up. Thanks, Mom. So these were in the oven for 20 minutes at 425, and then I turned the oven down to 375 for 10 minutes. So the last 10 minutes helps them kind of hold their shape. So I'm actually partial to custardy-centered Yorkshire pudding, so I tend to pull them out after about 25 minutes, but then they do tend to collapse and lose their shape a bit. So to hold their shape, just cook them for a bit of extra. Okay, so we've got all kinds of things going. Cabbage hot, potatoes are hot, Yorkshire pudding's ready. So now all I gotta do is carve the roast and make our gravy. So let's get that. So here we go, here's our roast. So now we're gonna get
very
some...
good. Again, it smells amazing.
Okay, now we're gonna use this to make gravy. So I'm gonna turn this burner on. We're just gonna heat that up a bit. So now we have to do what's called deglazing. That's when all these brown bits get dissolved back into a liquid. We're gonna be using some of our beef stock that we made earlier, and I also have a little bit of red wine. This is just a red blend. Okay, so we're gonna add our stock to start with. We're not gonna add it all. Awesome. Okay, so first we've got to cut the strings off of here. A good butcher would have put strings on here for you. Oh, this looks so good.
Well, it's not turkey, but
Dad, I feel like this is superior to turkey. All right, so often with prime rib, because there's a bone, you want to carve the bone off. Okay, I'm just going to follow along the bone. There we go. Thanks, Dad. Ooh, look at that beauty.
I want to.
Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, this is, people can chew on that if they want to. Okay, here we go.
So the extra 10 degrees didn't make too much difference. Looks great.
Well, yeah,
Pretty
it looks
awesome.
good. Yeah. It looks delicious. So the advantage of a reverse sear is that you have it red all the way to the edges like that. Oh, thanks, Mom. Okay, that's almost ready. It's boiling. Hey, do you want to add the red wine to that now?
I can do that, yes.
I'll add a bit more stock to that. Mm-hmm. Okay, to thicken that, I'm going to do a cornstarch slurry. There you go. Can you throw that over there for me, Dad, on the counter? Once it's all deglazed like that, it's easier to thicken it if we actually transfer it to a pot. So let me just grab a pot. Here's a couple cloths. Okay. So remember to pour it off the corner.
Yes. Okay. And the stove immediately protests.
There you go. So the faster the pour, the better. There you go. There you go. You're an old hand at this, obviously.
I didn't know, but...
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna thicken this with a cornstarch slurry. I find that's easier, it's lighter, it doesn't thicken quite so much. We're gonna do about a tablespoon. We're gonna mix it with a little bit of the water, or maybe some of the stock, actually. We can always add more, but you can't take it away.
Makes sense.
So we get a little whisk, Mom. You can take that back away. Okay, there we go. Now, perfect, mini whisk. Okay, so I know, so now you're gonna use the slightly bigger whisk. Pour it in there.
And whisk away.
Whisk away. You gotta whisk continuously. So with cornstarch, the important thing is you have to whisk continuously until it comes to a full rolling boil, or you'll get little particles in there. Oh, with so many things happening.
I think stirring is my forte.
Now, one of the other things I like to add, a hint of soy sauce. Whenever there's a beef-oriented thing, it does need a bit of salt, so adding a bit of soy sauce just kind of ramps up that umami flavor. You could also use Worcestershire sauce. Excellent. So are you happy with that thickness, or do you want it to be thicker?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of like runny roast beef gravy. If you want it to be thicker, you could add a bit more cornstarch, but roast beef gravy is supposed to be runny like an au jus. Yeah. All right, let's plate this up. I'll grab the serving dishes out of the oven with those cloths, and we'll put them on some serving dishes. So many things going on. Okay, so here we've got some garlic butter roasted mushrooms, delicious roasted kabocha squash.
A salad.
Mm-hmm. This is so beautiful. So this I just roasted with a little bit of butter and salt. That's it. Okay, I'm just gonna move these out of the way. Ooh, they're a bit hot so that I can plate. I'll move that one over here. There we go. All right, you guys need to try some, right?
I think
so.
Yeah, you want some of everything, like a squash?
A little bit,
Just a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Squash, a mushroom.
Yes.
Just one.
One mushroom, that's it.
Well, here, do you want to serve yourself some
Yes,
mashers
thank
and some
you.
cabbage?
Okay.
I think that would be good. I also really quickly cooked some green beans, just as an example of something that you can do last minute on the stove. Don't forget about the gravy and the Yorkshire pudding. It's not just one.
That Yorkshire looks fantastic.
Doesn't
Look at it.
Notice how we get children's portions?
This is truly fantastic.
You guys can come back anytime.
It's delicious, yes.
Is it good?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. A little bit of salad in there. Man, this is amazing. Okay.
The skin on that squash is good.
Yeah, it's good?
Yeah,
you
fine.
can just eat it up. Well, that's good. All right. There you have it. My holiday prime rib dinner with fluffy mashed potatoes and fail-proof Yorkshire puddings.
It's amazing. It is a wonderful combination of flavors.
Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for helping me out in the kitchen. This was awesome. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you. That was
wonderful.
awesome. It was a lot of fun.
And this is a good reward.
I promise I'll make you prime rib dinner one more time.
It's on tape, I hope.
Pairings are brought to you by Liquor Plus. Discover the plus.
Now that our prime rib is ready, let's talk about a perfect pairing. With us is Cheryl from Liquor Plus to help us out. Cheryl, thanks so much for joining us. What have you got for us?
Thanks for having me, Heidi. Yeah, today I brought a couple of wines from Soyuz La Rose.
Okay, yeah.
Iconic Canadian
Yeah, I've
winery,
heard good things
by
about
the
them,
way.
yeah.
Today we're going to try the Patel de Soyuz.
Okay.
I think it's going to go beautifully with what we've got
Yeah.
going on here. I've had this breathing for a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Actually, these wines are lovely when they are decanted a little bit as well.
Oh man, it looks good.
Look at that color.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
So this is a Bordeaux blend.
Okay. I'm excited to try it.
Me too. Cheers, of course.
Cheers.
Yes, I always like to.
Yeah.
Oh, holy
yeah,
cow.
Yeah.
A lot of raspberry coming
yeah.
off of there. Yeah.
That's really robust.
Yep.
Fruity, but not like sweet at all.
Not at all. No,
no.
a beautiful long finish on it.
Yeah.
You see, it just keeps going on.
It does
and
keep going on. I'm getting some vanilla at the end there.
Ah,
Yeah.
Good for you. Good palate you have. Yeah,
I
definitely
try.
some vanilla. Yeah, so I find that a very ample wine.
Yeah.
This obviously is an ample
Yeah.
meal as
Yeah.
well, so let's ample
Let's
it up.
amp it up. Yeah, let's just
Okay,
dig
let's
right into
dig
this.
right in.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm gonna try that.
Okay. Love.
I just love prime rib.
Me too. And it is cooked to perfection.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh,
Now
it's
with the wine.
amazing. Oh my God. This is amazing.
Together?
Yeah.
Ah.
Unreal. It makes it makes the meat taste more meaty. Like
It
you know what I mean?
does.
This was so good. Thank you so much again for another awesome pairing.
Oh, and thank you for another awesome meal.
You're welcome. I would love to see your take on this holiday meal. Take a picture, upload it to social media, and tag me. I'm Chef Heidi Fink. The more you learn, the better it tastes. I just need to dive right into these potatoes. You feel free to try some of these other things. Like I got
Yeah.
garlic butter mushrooms there,
Oh my
some like
God.
German red cabbage.
Butter mushrooms too.
I was trying to think of things that you could do, you know, like if you got the whole roast in the oven, you gotta do a lot of stuff on the stove, you know?
The colors of everything, you know, the beans and
Yeah,
the yam in there.
You gotta eat in color.
I love it. I agree.